I was introduced to a supervision process some years ago at university, one that had been thoroughly tested and shown to work effectively, and I tried it a number of times and I think it was highly effective, but it ultimately failed, and here's why. The process was a well-structured one so that the supervisor, be it a university supervisor or a principal or a supervising teacher, would have a meeting with the person who's the subject of the clinical supervision, and they would discuss an upcoming lesson, and the teacher would say, this is what I'm going to teach, this is the way I'm going to go about it, and basically these are my intentions. So that'd be a fairly brief meeting. So then the supervisor would come along and sit through the lesson and take notes on everything that they could record as the lesson is proceeding, as much detail as possible, and make little observations in the margin as one saw fit. Then the supervisor would go away and spend 20 or 30 minutes looking at the notes that he or she has taken, and they'd look for themes and trends and significant observations they'd make about the lesson, and as much as possible basing their summary on what's actually done on the paper, what they saw and heard. Then that would be a planning process for what the supervisor was going to say when they got together again. So then there'd be a meeting of half an hour or so between the supervisor and the supervisee, and the conversation would hopefully go along the lines of the supervisor saying, okay, well, here's what I observed, and here are the things I'm going to draw attention to. And then the teacher, if that's the subject of it, would start to say, oh gosh, is that so? I didn't realise this was happening, or that's interesting, I think that worked well. So there'd be a conversation based on the notes, and out of that conversation would often flow really rich discussion about what worked. And the basis of the strength of the process is that the supervisor wasn't coming in and saying, right, here's my assessment of the lesson, and here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong. Rather, it was a conversation about what actually occurred, and that the teacher was driving it, and that jointly they were making observations which led to improved practice. Well, to finish this segment, the process in my experience worked very well. What killed it and made it something I didn't continue for terribly long is the time it took. So in the second in this series, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I learnt from it, what worked and what I took from it, and some possible ways of using elements of the process.